Hello and welcome to an overview, review, and then dissection and analysis of the contents of the Vignette of Death White Gigalion. The Vignette of Death series, of which we currently only have one box, is a set of one-off showdowns and at the moment upgrades to existing monsters that give you an alternate variant. So the White Gigalion, I purchased this myself physically when it first came out a few years ago. This digital copy came with the master key, so that was provided by Adam, although there's no requirement for me to make this review or any kind of review, but I wanted to disclose that the digital copy was gifted to me while the physical copy I purchased myself. I wrote a review on this a while ago. I intend to revisit that written review at some point, but if you want to see older versions of this and you're a patron, you can go to the Patreon, you can click on the reviews tab and you'll find it there. If you're not, you're going to get a fresh review here where I go through all of the things. But let's start off first of all with a discussion of the price of this and roughly what it's trying to do. So this costs physically $85, on the simulator $8.50. That's the same price as the Gorm, and it's more than most of the other small box expansions. So for example, the Lion Knight is $75, the Lonely Tree is $85, the Slenderman is $70. So it's around priced in that same ballpark, although it comes with a lot nicer box. So that's kind of the difference. The other difference is it's trying to give you this way of playing the game in a one-shot. And when we look at the overview and review it a bit, I'll demonstrate what that kind of means. But ultimately, this is a bit different to the normal expansions because it's giving you a standalone experience and then also integrating itself into the game, but not as an entirely new monster, instead as an upgrade of an existing one. So let's unbox this, shall we? And we're going to put it in my inventory. Once we've looked at the screen, I'm going to pause the recording, lay everything out so we can talk about it here, and we'll go from there. So let's open this up and watch the animation. Okay, so you'll have to excuse me. If I click on this space at all, it's going to immediately start unpacking it all, recycling the box and putting everything in my inventory. So I can't zoom in. That's just the nature of when I'm recording with these. But you can zoom in and out a little bit. So let's talk about the contents, which you can visually see here, although it's not totally clear on everything. There's actually a missing, the gear cards are missing, and these piles are all way higher than they physically are in the actual game. So you get the White Gigalion here with a scenic base insert and then a 100mm plastic base to put that insert on. It's a 3x3 monster, so it is Gorm size on the base. It's bigger than the normal White Lion, which does have an impact on the showdown. You also get the 8-page Vignette of Death rulebook. Here you get 4 survivors. We'll talk about each of those individually when we lay them out with their gear grids, but they represent the survivors that are going to be fighting against the White Lion during the vignette, and also survivor miniatures you can use during the normal campaign. I'll also discuss how useful each one of them is when we get to that. There's 2 new AI cards, 1 new basic action / data card, 1 new hit location, 2 new strange resources, a strain milestone card for unlocking the White Gigalion into your campaign, 5 new Gigacatarium gear cards, and the Gigacatarium location. You'll notice there's only 4 crafts here. We'll get to that. And then the Lovelorn Rock gear card, which represents the Lovelorn Rock that you can get during a hunt event. We'll also take a little look at that as well. But for now, I'm just going to unpackage this now, put it into my inventory, and we're going to pause the recording while I lay everything out on the table so we can discuss it. So let's just do the click. Right. Okay, and well, for you, I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. It's all laid out now. These are all of the components. And we're going to go through the vignette first, and after that we will just do a quick overview of the Gigalion stuff, and then I'll go into a proper and you breakdown of these 4 pieces of gear. If you want to just get to that, there will be timestamps along the bottom and in the description, so you can just jump to the relevant place. So we'll start off with a little look at the book. So this has a bit of flavour to it. It explains, how to play it as a vignette, how the strain system works, a little bit more on that later, how to fit the White Gigalion Aberration into the campaign, and then it has the rules for the vignette, plus the rules for a normal showdown against it, and that's it. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell too much on those pages. If you want to read them, you can pause and take a look. I think I've already spoiled enough with that. So we're going to start now here with a look at the White Gigalion itself. So the White Gigalion, as you can see, can all be encountered at level 2 and level 3. It has 2 new traits. We'll look at those in a moment. Plus, it always starts with Smart Cat on top of the deck, meaning it has a higher chance of dropping out a bunch of moods initially. We can also see it has 10 basic, 5 advanced, meaning it has 16 moods overall, 8 movement, which is quite high for a Node 1. It's not really Node 1, but consider this is off a white line, 8 is quite high, 10 toughness, and it's got +1 speed and +1 damage over the basic white lion. Level 3, same again, it gets Indomitable as to be expected, and gains this Merciless, and Golden Eyes, the legendary Golden Eyes, and it has +1 luck, making it hard to crit. Its instinct is different to the normal white lion. It leaps high, vacuuming air into its sensitive nostrils, and it gains +1 accuracy and +1 luck tokens, meaning it's more like it's overcoming your accuracy and your ability to crit it as the showdown continues. But also significantly, it puts this gigantic pendulous paunch on top of it. That is the new hit location card. We'll look at that in a moment. But first of all, let's get into just the basic action, which, as we can see, it's a white line basic action, so nice and simple. There we go. Now we'll look at the new trait, Vicious. So this is at the end of each monster turn, the monster gets low to the ground, preparing to dash away with a flow step, and it will target all adjacent survivors, full move away from all other threats, and grab all targets. You'll notice even if there are no targets, it will still do this, and then there's an explanation of grab. So this kind of makes the White Gigalion act a bit like a yo-yo. It kind of runs forward, runs backwards, runs forwards, runs backwards. I'm not super enamored with how that behaves during a showdown fight. It does create some really awkward situations, but this is this is what it does. Then we have the Giga Claws, the other one. Whenever the monster collides with a survivor, it grabs them as well. So this is like a big, an upgrade again to grab. And also when grabbed on a 9+, 20% of the time, they get bleed 1 on top of everything else. So you can see that the White Gigalion is taking the grab Merciless. I think it's Merciless. Anyway, it's not Merciless. It's taking the end of action grab of everyone that I slip in my mind. I am going to sit here for a moment and try and remember the name of that card. And I say remember, I actually went to look at it. It's Cunning. Is the card which makes the white line trigger at the level 2 and onwards. Our old friend. I've forgotten the name of it because it's actually been it's been a few weeks since I fought a white lion, thanks to the gambler's chest taking up my gaming table. Anyway, hit location, we've got the gigantic pendulous paunch, and we can see this is a first strike location, so you have to deal with it. It gets +5 toughness wound this location, so again it's like 15 toughness with the level 2, and it has this big old reflex where it lands in front of the attacker, so it's even countering ranged attacks, and then it runs them over and hits everyone else, and it's got a crit where you can knock it down. So you can see that while there's not a lot of cards being put into this expansion, this is all changing the way the monster behaves a great deal, and it's trying to interact heavily with the paunch to bring it back into play, and force you to deal with it multiple times, or at least ensure that the White Gigalion has targets so it doesn't pendulous paunch you. Right, then we have the strange resource. This is the hooked claw. This is the new resource that's dropped. It's a bone. It's used for crafting all of the new pieces of Gigacaterium gear in one way or another. So that is how they've managed to set up new gear for this monster without, and while also using the original White Lion resources, but not letting you just craft that gear without facing the White Gigalion. Finally, we have the milestone. I'm not going to zoom in on that, but when you complete the milestone, you get to insert the White Gigalion as a quarry into your campaigns. Right, then we have the vignette itself. So before I do this and do this little setup for the vignette, we're going to look at these. So let's go through each of these 4 survivors in turn, and we'll look at their gear grids. Something to note, you can see that the set bonuses are figured into the models in respect to their armor points, but they don't have the armor set cards here. They also have these references. You'll have to dig these particular fighting arts and other bits and pieces out of the core game to have alongside it. There is an issue with that, but for the most part these cards are pretty clear. So this number in the top left, that is like the lantern year that this survivor is at. So that's just to give you a little reference of roughly what lantern year Dead Rock encountered this vignette, so it gives you a little bit of help of understanding balance, their survival actions, and then all of the other different pieces of stats. Right, so if we just close this now and we'll take a look at Gadrock's gear grid. It has White Lion armor set, and you'll note, as I said, we don't have the armor bonus card, so you'll have to take that from the box. This layout's not fantastic. It's in fact a little confusing for newer players, so you'll have to explain that how puzzle affinities work and how this isn't connected. I think they could have done better by not having the lion headdress in here and having this connected up to give that extra thing, something more, which is optional, that players could look at and go, oh, I can do this when I'm out of position. But otherwise, this is a slightly substandard but perfectly fine gear grid. It's great for the showdown, okay? All of these, I'll criticise them maybe in like consideration of what they're like in the full game, but within the scenario, for the most part, these are done really well, and it's only Gadrock's positioning I think could have been a bit better. Right, then we have Breccia. So Breccia is, as I mentioned before, she's appeared in at least 2 other places. She is a leather armoured whip specialist with Mighty Strike. This model here, let's just click on it. This one and Gadrock, both, like, they are useful for builds. A leather armor whip survivor, and we'll look at her build in specific in a moment, is actually pretty solid. Gadrock is also fairly solid. Gorn plus white lion armor and a Katara of some kind is great. So Breccia, this is not far off being a very solid leather armor whip build, and for the purposes of the showdown, it's great with Mighty Strike and everything else. This works really well, and she doesn't have any natural extra strength, so against the White Gigalion, the Lucky Charm helps increase the chances that she's going to do stuff during the showdown. And Brainmint is a nice way of getting rid of bleed tokens for her. Ultimately, you could definitely use this model in a campaign to represent a leather armor hunter whip survivor. I would probably put maybe have a different left facing blue for here, but Lucky Charm is fine, and I would likely have a round leather shield here instead of a Brainmint, because this blue affinity doesn't do anything to the build anyway. But on the whole, really solidly enjoyable, fun to play with, good for the scenario, and actually just a good representation of how you can build a whip survivor in the campaign. Then we have Hungry Basalt. Hungry Basalt is our Gormant armoured survivor, so this brings us to one of the first issues, is if you don't own the Gorm box, you don't have the Gorm set bonus. And that leaves a question of whether you're supposed to use the set bonus cards or not in this. Personally, as I own them, I do, because the set bonus armor points are already fitted on here. Hungry Basalt has binge eating, which isn't super important here. It's nice. I like these little flavor text on the bottom. It's fun for people to read these and get a little bit of a grip towards what the character is, and maybe get a bit into that role-playing experience. Hungry Basalt's gear grid is really good. This is legitimately a version of a Gorman armor survivor build. About the only things you might run differently is you'd have the Monster Tooth necklace where the boss Mehendi is. It's not a super great gear card, this one, and you might have a different down-facing blue here for the Gorman mask. But Hungry Basalt, this model is just, yep, I've used this exact build multiple times in campaigns, and it's great. I will say physically, this hand is a little prone to breaking off because the contact area is very small, and actually the axe is quite heavy, and it can get caught on things and tear off while you're like storing him and everything. So I've definitely had to find a good storage solution for Hungry Basalt, but I love the model. I think he looks great, and I do use it to represent my Greater Gax round leather shield characters. Last of all, we have the Rock Knight of Dead Rock, probably the most unique of all of our survivors. So the Rock Knight is afflicted with the curse of regal armour, the King's Curse. Hence, as we'll look at her gear grid, she has a very unusual selection of affinities. Good insanity, decent amounts of survival. She's kind of the scenario's frontline tank. Squeamish is something relevant. You do need to pay attention to that. Post-traumatic stress disorder doesn't really matter. And she's a club specialist, and so on. She doesn't ever get an armor set bonus, so you don't have to worry about that. And her gear grid, I think, is like it's the most interesting of all of the ones in this. It's a full bone gear grid to take advantage of bone earrings. So she has +2 speed and +2 strength at the start of the showdown, because she's insane, because she has at least 3 affinities. 3 insanity. She has no affinities, as you can see. That's regal armor for you. She has armor spikes, which like once per round might do something useful during the showdown. A skullcap hammer, which is better with bone earrings. Bone darts, it's fairly solid as well with bone earrings, because it's not slow, so it works quite well. And then she has Lovelorn Rock, which is modelled on her miniature, We'll come back to the gear grid in a moment. But if we zoom around here, we can see there it is on her back, which is really cool. Kind of identifying just how huge the rock is and why it occupies a gear slot, I think is very interesting. So there are a couple of issues I found when playing with the Rock Knight during the Vignette showdown. First of all, there's super dense locations. This is frail and it can get archived. You don't have any way of flipping it over. I would have liked them to supply us with some like token that you put on top to indicate that it's been lost, and the same with the skull helm. Because they're fixed in, they can get destroyed during the vignette, and while the skull helmet doesn't matter so much once it's gone because you already lost your armor points, it's a bit weird with the bone darts. You might want to have some spare gear cards around that you can put face down on top of these to block them off, so whoever you're playing with isn't as confused. But I think I would have liked to have seen a couple of archived covers, and I just knocked my drink over, so I got to pause this recording. Okay, it wasn't much of a big deal. The cup was basically empty anyway. I could just edit this out, but I'm not going to because nobody's infallible. These things happen, and you might just wonder why you hear a wet noise of whoop or whatever it was exactly without me commenting on it. So I'm not going to edit this. I'm not going to edit this out. Right, we've looked at the Rock Knight and all little bits and pieces. So let's now just do a quick setup of the showdown for the vignette. Confirmed, so it should take most of this off the table and put it automatically in. There we go, look at that. Quite fancy. And we'll come back over here and talk about the rest of this a bit later. Can see the automatic hasn't grabbed these over, and it hasn't deployed any sheets for the given survivors. That's a bit of a thing, but I am sure they will look into improving that later. You have to do this manual anyway in person. So anyway, this is how the showdown will be for the Vignette of Death. I'm not going to play through it here, but it is a unique and interesting layout. It's based off what a White Lion showdown could be like, which is pretty good. And we can see now it's pulled all of the original deck from the White Lion and everything. This has a set deck, so this is in the booklet that tells you what goes in there before you shuffle and set it up, and there will always be Smart Cat on top, which I have ruined because I clicked on a couple of the cards. There it is. Yeah, so put that there. Right. Let's just take a moment, shall we? The vignette is particularly good if you want to showcase to your friends who are unsure about Kingdom Death, but want to try it out. While I do think that the prologue and first story is really well done, and it's a great introduction to learning the game, if you're trying to showcase what Kingdom Death can be like, or if you're trying to take this to a convention and give people a chance to see the game, etc., this is a much better demonstration of the game itself. It's not a complicated monster to fight because it's based off a White Lion, and a White Lion is a very, very good learning monster. Additionally, the gear grids are not super complex to get your head around. You can explain everything to the players in advance. The couple of issues are when there's puzzle abilities that are not active. That might be a bit confusing, especially whoever's playing as Gadrock is going to maybe feel a bit hard done by compared to those who are playing Hungry Basalt and Brechia, because Hungry Basalt and Brechia have all of their affinities activated, while Gadrock doesn't get any. But again, that is still a good teaching moment to explain to someone how things work. It's a little awkward that you have to get extra cards from the various decks for the fighting arts and the disorders. I would have liked them to have printed those cards onto another sheet. I think this would have been better off if we had a side sheet which had any disorders, any fighting arts, and the set bonus cards. That would have been great. These little character cards are nice, but they don't do everything that you could do with on here. The showdown itself as a vignette is good. It is fun, it's well balanced. It often comes down to the wire between who is going to win, and that is exciting. I don't feel like the survivors are guaranteed to lose, but for newer players it's kind of way more likely. However, they will go down swinging. They can take a lot of hits and they can feel that sense of, wow, we are four trying to work together against one powerful enemy, and also they feel in contention. It's like we could have won that. It creates those little emergent gameplay moments that feel good and exciting, and as a consequence I think this is a very well designed vignette. However, for myself, I think at $85 there are better purchases available, because this is not a full complete monster even though it is priced as one. It's great for providing experienced players with an alternative White Lion. I sometimes put the White Lion in and exclusively only fight the Gigalion version. So that's a great piece for a more entrenched player. But for somebody who's newer to the game, it's hard to recommend this over many of the other expansions, which are the same price or in fact slightly cheaper. So it's expensive for what you get, although it is high quality and it is currently the only vignette. So that's my issues with it. Hello, so this is me during editing, and I noticed while recording this bit that I forgot to mention another key piece of information that you really should have about this expansion, and that is when it comes to the gear cards, you literally just get one copy of each and 2 copies of the paired weapon that is in this box. Instead of getting the normal 3 of each and 4 of any paired weapons, which I don't think is particularly great. Considering the price of this, I really would expect there to be 3 copies of each. So just be aware of that. You get a lot less than what you expect. You get one of each. So could be better. On that front, now we're going to go through the campaign stuff just here. So it can be added to the campaign, and we'll get through all these little pieces of gear that are present here. I'm just going to pause for one moment. Alright, so now we're on to the analysis of all of the different pieces of gear. For a really quick initial review, in case you're lingering around and you want my opinion on this, I think that the Gigacatarium has a fairly good set of upgrades and improvements to the experience of fighting the White Lion. All of the pieces of gear are good. It's worth noting that one of them is People of the Lantern only, and also the Lovelorn Rock is really only, well, it's only for if you pick it up through the event. So, welcome to the Gigacatarium and you. Let's take a dive into the 4 gear cards. So all of these use these hooked claws, and you get 1 hooked claw for killing a level 2 and 2 hooked claws for a level 3 White Gigalion. So that's your stream to get into these. They all use at least 1, sometimes 2 hooked claws, and then otherwise they will use basic resources, leather, iron, and White Lion specific resources. So let's get into this deck. We start off with the hooked claw knife. So this costs a hooked claw, an elder cat teeth and 2 organs. That means it has to come from either fighting a level 3 white lion and a level 2 white gigalion, or by fighting a level 3 white gigalion, defeating it. It's a weapon, melee, dagger, bone. It has a red affinity in every direction. It has 3 speed, 6 plus accuracy and 7 strength. And it has an affinity bonus ability that if you have 4 red affinities in your gear grid, then you get access to the ability that when your wound causes a reaction where the monster moves, you tear a chunk of flesh out, it suffers a wound. It doesn't expressly say it on here, but based on the rules and clarification we've had for the Pippa, this means when you wound with this weapon and cause a reaction. If anyone's found anything different to that, then I would love to be able to just have this in my gear grid and deal wounds with other weapons instead. But I'm basing it off the Pippa ruling, which, if you're not aware, the Pippa is a weapon that's in the gambler's chest, and when active it gives +4 strength. What it means is it gives +4 strength to that weapon, so I'm taking the same, applying the same ruling from that to this. And also it makes sense. Statistically, 7 strength is really good for a dagger. 3 speed is absolutely fine, a little high but fine, and the automatic wound on reactions, while varied depending on how much the monster you're attacking moves when it reacts, this can be very powerful indeed, or it might, just be not relevant at all. It depends on the monsters you're attacking with. But this is one of the better daggers, and I really like using it. So I think it's a huge upgrade over the Cat Fang knife, for sure. Which is mostly what you're using this for, is I don't want a Cat Fang knife, I'll have a hooked claw knife instead. I think it's very good. It is one of my goals to craft when hunting the White Gigalion, and so I'm very happy that it exists. Our next one is the Lion Slayer Cape. I am going to apologise in advance because there's the White Lion Coat, the Lion Skin Cloak, and the Lion Slayer Cape. And I tried really hard, but I still get the 3 of them mixed up because coat, cloak, cape. So hopefully I don't here to keep it as clear as possible, but we'll see. So this is crafted for 1 hooked claw, 2 white fur and 1 shimmering mane. The shimmering mane is really big because previously all you ever did with the shimmering mane was immediately turn it into 2 hide, because the other thing you could build with it wasn't very good. The Lion Slayer Cape is good, so that has changed the value of the shimmering mane when you have the White Gigalion, which I think is great. It's nice when we get a piece of gear that makes us reassess previous resources. So it's a good crafting recipe. It's technically a bone and 4 hide is another way you could look at it. But this is off a level 2, so that shouldn't be fine. It shouldn't be hard to get those kind of resources. It's item for bone and flammable. So the bone keyword is nice. It has bone synergy for people of the skull, and as we saw Breccia demonstrating a bone synergy gear grid, which I don't think I talked about in enough detail, but she has a specific bone-based build that is... I like how it's showcased, but you can have a Lion Slayer Cape on that kind of survivor. It's an accessory. It gives you 1 armor to the body, and it has 2 abilities. On arrival, all survivors gain 1 survival. If you're wearing fur armor, reduce all damage suffered by 1 to a minimum of 1. Now, we've seen similar things to this ability on the lion skin cloak and the silk bodysuit, but the important thing to note is those 2 both say hits, damage from hits. This is all damage. So any damage source, it's been reduced by 1 to a minimum of 1. And as I've mentioned before, this will actually work on top of other damage reductions. So you could have this with the silk bodysuit, or you could have this with the lion skin cloak. Now, fur armor means you need a piece of gear in your gear grid that has the armor and fur keywords. That means we've actually got 5 pieces of armor which the cape can be used with. Now, I can't demonstrate all 5 of them because 2 of them are from the Gambler's Chest and that is not in the simulator yet, but I'll just mention them here. Okay, so they are both pattern armor sets, and they are the Sprinter armor, which uses White Lion gauntlets and cloak and screaming skirt and screaming leg warmers, along with the Sprinter helm. So that it'll work with that due to the fur keywords. And then the Beast Hunter outfit has the screaming braces and screaming leg warmers, so again there's fur there. Within the current releases, we've got a total of 3 armor sets if you just have the core game and the first generation expansions. We'll look at them here. So first up, we've got the White Lion armor, obviously, direct synergies. So this piece doesn't help White Lion armor as much as it could do, but it does provide another up-facing red, which means the pressure on having all those up-facing red affinities is reduced a bit, and you can get either the helm or the boots online more easily. So beneficial for White Lion armor, yes, but there's many band-aids for White Lion armor. This just happens to be one of the best ones. It works with Screaming armor. Screaming armor has fur on everything except the head, so it has fur armor, so it passes the test. And Screaming armor doesn't have as good a level of armor as it used to, so it does appreciate having that extra protection to reduce the amount of damage it is taking. Finally, we have Brawler armor. Brawler armor qualifies because it has White Lion gloves or gauntlets, the White Lion gloves, and the lion skin cloak as its body piece. So that is a late game usage for it. You see it has the lion skin cloak in there, which gives us our fur and bone and is heavy. Unfortunately, you can't use the lion skin cloak together with the silk bodysuit because the silk bodysuit won't work alongside heavy armor, but that's perfectly reasonable and understandable. It's really good. Like, the cape is really good, and it's one of the first things you're going to make if you're using fur armor and hunting the level 2 White Gigalion. Then we've got the dense bone arrows. So if you have a version without cumbersome, that means you got the older version. It was given cumbersome in an update in the newer release. Hopefully this is going to be sent out to other people. I think it's going to be in one of the update packs in the future. I believe that was the idea. It costs 1 hooked claw, 3 great cat bone, 2 leather and 2 iron, and it requires the blacksmith to craft. It is a 2-speed, 5+ accuracy, 6 strength, sharp, cumbersome ammo bow arrow, and it's really good. So once you have this crafted, you can use any old bow with it. Like, it requires the blacksmith, so you do have to get quite far up the crafting tech tree to get this made, but it is super good. Like, you can just have a catgut bow and now you get to fire really good arrows, and the only downside is you can't increase your bow proficiency with the arrow shots. It's just really powerful, and also super helpful is that it has a right facing affinity if you wanted to use it with the arc bow, right facing red affinity, which the arc bow wants a left facing puzzle affinity connected up, so that's super useful as well. Just really good, just like a must craft for archers, and kind of power creeps out the Sunstalker arrows, which are similar, but they only have 3 activations. Yeah, it's just a really good, really powerful piece of gear. Last of all, we get two of these because this is a paired weapon. This is for the end game portion of People of the Lantern. You've seen oxidized stuff elsewhere. You have to have oxidation. I'm not going to talk about that here in detail, but essentially what you get with these cards is a upgrade to the Lion Beast guitars that takes them to the end game. You need a Lion Beast guitar, you need 2 hooked claws, an iron and 2 bone, and then you swap the Beast guitar for the oxidized Beast guitar. My issue with this set of cards applies over here as well, in that you're just getting 1 of each, which, you know, why are we not getting 3 of each the way we would before, and like maybe 2 each of these? I feel that is a bit stingy for the price of the box. I should have mentioned that during the review section, but yeah, you know, what can you do? I wish this was better priced. Okay, all of the pieces of gear though were really good. Like those guitars. Sorry, I really should go through the guitars. I got sidetracked. So last of all, we have the Oxidized Beast guitars. These are People of the Lantern only. They require oxidation, which if you don't know how to get it, you probably shouldn't worry about that, and you just need to know that these are upgrades to the Lion Beast guitars. The crafting recipe, in addition to needing oxidation, is a Lion Beast guitar, 2 hooked claws, 1 iron and 2 bone. These are a weapon melee guitar, metal and bone, with an up and down facing red. They're deadly, paired and sharp. If you have 2 red affinities, they gain barbed 4, which is, as you can see, plus 4 strength on a perfect hit, and that can work on either dice. They have 2 speed, 7 plus accuracy, 5 strength on top of the sharp, so very potent endgame guitar for People of the Lantern. And barbed interacts very well with paired, so these are very good. Last of all, just for sake of completeness, we have the Lovelorn Rock. So this is gained during Hunt Event 80, Lovelorn Rock. It was updated to include the bone and stone keywords compared to how it was before. I think it's really cool that we have this. Again, though, I think that we should have gotten 3 copies of it. So that is a bit of a negative. However, I hope it's been informative for you and helps you decide whether you want this or not. It's got good gear. It's good for teaching people how to play, but there's better value in other boxes if you don't have them already. And until next time, happy hunting.